We're in the process right now of we're, I guess, laying some foundation with a few different people that we're looking into, including in this. We have some really cool things that are coming up. But I wanted to, before we jump in too far to where the project is, I want to talk about why it's important.
Yeah, well, let's backtrack even further than that and talk about what is it that we're doing. So we have decided that we are going to work on a documentary, and the documentary is going to cover creation and something really cool that Steve's dad spent his entire life working on and doing. And yeah, so I'm very excited about that. I'm excited to step into a lane where I kind of feel like we're not going to say it's unexplored, right? There's plenty of things out there in the Christian realm, I mean, content wise and documentary, but I've certainly never shot one. And you know, me and you have never shot one together for sure, so I'm excited to see what that looks like. And it's kind of interesting because this project's like a personal thing, right? Like it holds some personal merit for you and your dad, and it pays homage there. And it holds some things that are near and dear to us, right? Just our salvation and to be able to glorify God. And then also it just gives some hard facts, cold, undeniable truths, which is something that I feel like, is going to speak to a multitude of people, whether you're a believer, whether you're not a believer, whether you're just thinking about how we got here, maybe you don't, it speaks kind of to everybody, or that's the hopes, right? We need to put it together. Right now it is nothing but an idea and some initial equipment purchases and, lots of talks back and forth between you and I, and but that's how I see it.
Yeah, it's cool because we do have two very different perspectives on things. However, we both obviously know, we know the truth of creation, but we want to bring it to you in a way that is going to be an apologetic way. I want you to be able to explain these things. We're called in 1 Peter 3:15 to always be able to explain a reason for the hope that you have, but do so with gentleness and respect. That's what we're all called to do. So if someone asks you about your faith, why do you believe this? Why do you believe in creation? All we need is our faith. There's no doubt, for our salvation. But when you're talking about somebody else who's not saved, always be able to explain a reason for the hope that you have. Having an apologetic view to understand why you believe creation happened and to know that there's actually proof. And on top of that, to show you the scientific side from both points of view, to give you insight and to have, I guess, I don't want to say ammo, but have something in your tool belt. So when this comes up, that you can fully explain why you believe what you believe and have something behind it. And to me, that's what's so important. You need to be able to explain that, be able to witness to people through those things. And on top of that, with Sean's insight and his you're such a creative person, and that's something that I'm only beginning to tap into the fact that I even have a creative side. I didn't realize it till I met you. But we're digging into some things, and we're going to bring this documentary is going to be in a different light than you've ever seen before. It's going to come from a different angle. It's going to have some amazing people as a part of it. And it's going to be something that, whether you're a Christian, whether you're an atheist, whether you're just undecided, that it'll be entertaining to watch. You may not agree with everything on there, but we want to hold everybody's attention. We want the material to be there. So I've seen a lot of these other documentaries on creation, evolution. I've seen a lot of these different things where people bring up different ideas and they have these I don't know, shorts or, TV shows where they talk about this topic, but a lot of them are poorly produced.
Mhm.
Poorly, the material might be excellent, but it's just not put together well. And I know we're going to put something out that not only my dad would have been proud of, but God's going to use it to reach, I believe, millions of people. I truly do believe that. And I think it's going to change lives. And that's the whole goal, is God wants us to plant those seeds. And he's put this on us. And that's for me, that's where the project's coming from.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's a good point to have a reason for, to stand up and say, this is why I believe in what I believe. No matter what topic, it makes sense to know why it is that you put your personal stamp, your personal voucher. That is what you choose to integrate with and identify with. And I think creation can be tricky, right? And I think I, I've come to find that I probably have a different viewpoint sometimes on just Christianity or scriptures or something as a whole, because of, I found the Lord later in life, after a lot of life experience and things like that. So, with topics like creation and stuff, before I committed to believing, before I submitted into the idea of believing, a lot of these things that are in the Bible, I mean, if we just keep it real, right? Like, and we take off our Christian backpack for a second and set that to the side and say, okay, so what happened in creation? Like, the Spirit of God hovered over the waters, like, it's very hard to wrap your mind around this. It is a huge thought. I don't think that any one human understands creation at its whole. A part of it, I believe, is having faith that God's word is true. And I think that's where people get tripped up at, is because where you have to insert faith on a topic, people want something tangible, but there is all these tangible things out here. There's all this proof that backs up and shows that creation absolutely happened the way that it said in Genesis, that God absolutely supplied everything. It's not that we evolved. It's not any of that. He breathed creation, right? And it's going to be cool to be able to show some of that hard evidence on these things, and to present this topic in such a way that even if maybe you're not a believer, that my hope would be that you could make some sense out of this thing that you're doing. If you don't believe in God, if you don't believe in a creator or anything like that, you have to believe that you're at least here for something, and it would be good to understand how you came about. So it's a cool topic. It's a cool topic that goes further than just scripture, or our love for the Lord, or our love for ministry, or anything like that. It's just a really important topic, and I think that it's something that a lot of people identify with, because like, who hasn't laid awake in bed at night when it's quiet and say, I want you, how did all this happen? Like, how am I here right now? This doesn't make sense. It's a huge thought, and I think that it's cool. Obviously I'm very happy to be a part of it. But I think it's really cool that this is you stepping into the footsteps that your dad kind of trailblazed, and left you with. It's something that he continues to live on with what he's doing. And through this project, I think it's a legacy piece that's really cool too. And that excites the creative side of me, is because we have several different stories to tell with this project, right? And I think it's going to be really fun. I think it's going to be challenging, and at the end, I think it's going to be highly rewarding to do it the way that we God's given us the vision to do it. And we've talked at length about it. It's your vision, which is the numbers in this process, what your dad laid out, and my vision is, at this point, it's completely visual, because in all transparency, I mean, I know what I believe about creation, but I have no idea the topic that we're about to cover. So as we shoot this and as we go into it from my side, for directing this thing and producing this thing is I'm going to learn it as we go. Like there's going to be these things that unfold. And I think that even as we sit here, this is going to grow in and transform into something that we don't even know what it is exactly yet. And that's what's really cool about starting any project is we could have an idea and God can just say, yeah, you thought. Now here's what you're going to actually do, So at the end, who even knows? This might not even be a creation documentary at the end. I don't know. But I know what we're shooting for right now and what's definitely been laid ahead of you from your dad is to finish this workout, to get this out.
Well, I will tell you, it definitely will be a creation because that's what God's put on me, man. I feel it and I know it, and the way that he set it up. And that first video we put out kind of explained how God put that on my heart for us to really get after that. And that video, it was cool how you put that together, just because it helped me. It's weird watching yourself talk about certain things when you look back at it, because it's one of those things. It's hard to talk about when you're talking about someone who's passed, someone you cared about, and still care about. I mean, there's not a day that goes by I don't think about my dad. And to know that a project like this, it's not that I just want to do this for my dad. It's because God said, you're going to go do this. So I think that's what's really important when we really break down where this is going. And the crazy part is, and I can't say too much yet because, this is early stages, but as soon as this happened, God put some people in line for this, that it blew me away. And the fact that all these things started coming up that go down this path, that lead down this rabbit trail, this rabbit hole, for the creation / evolution debate, that God has given us no excuse but to go through with this. I mean, no excuse. This is exactly what he wants. And with like I said, the people he's put in place, just me and you meeting, but then the people that he's put in our paths, partly through the podcasting that we do, and then partly just through the way that God connects people. It's remarkable, and I cannot wait for you to start seeing some of the people that will jump on and that are going to be part of this, and start filling up, like I said, your tool belt, so you understand why you believe these things, so you understand, that same question. It's funny you said that, because if you go through and look right now, you just said the question, like you sit in bed and wonder where we came from, and Ancient Aliens has been on TV for like 30 seasons. You know what I mean? You have shows like that where this is where we came from. You have, all these different evolution shows talking about, and even, our textbooks, all these different things. We can go back down the line, all the way to Charles Darwin and say, okay, this is where the idea of natural selection, this is the idea, all these different things that come in and that we've used to try to describe where we came from and why, without the proof. But we've accepted those things based on either partial truths or total lack of truths. But we've accepted those things, as a society, as a culture. And I think partly it's because we don't want to admit that we are, we serve a creator, someone who's greater than us. We think of ourselves as the greatest thing in this world. Like we are so much above everything else. But the fact to think that we have to be subservient, or that you have to answer for your life, your lifestyle, your sin, your things like that, gets people really uncomfortable. To think that there is an intelligent, all-seeing creator, it's something that people really struggle with. So, they look for other ways to explain it that doesn't have any repercussions to them, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. But it's also interesting on the flip side of that. Yes, people try to fill in that void. I believe that we have a lot of people, myself included, previously, and I can't say at current times, maybe it still feels like that, but I know better at this point. But, before the Lord, you're walking around trying to fill a God-sized hole with the world, and it's, you can believe whatever you want to believe. You can believe that, you're talented, and you can believe that you have resources, and you can believe that all this stuff happened just so you could go out and do something cool that you thought you might want to do. But at the end of the day, you find yourself in a place where none of the stuff matters, and you're still in bed. Why am I here? What am I doing? What is my purpose? And without knowing your creator, and without knowing that you were not just created, but created with such divine intention, like there wasn't an accident in making you. There wasn't a mistake in that you have this skill or this gift or that gift. There wasn't. You were meticulously thought after during your creation and made for such a specific purpose and time. So when you don't figure those things out, you're just devoid of everything. Life has no purpose, and you can continue to try to do the things or be the things or say the things or whatever it is that you're trying to fill that God-sized hole with. It does not get filled until you know your creator. And once you know your creator, then you're on the path to hopefully walking in a purpose that shows you why you were created. And I think that in the last 5 to 6 years, I've realized that on such a scale, completely losing the idea of someone that I had created over a course of 29 to 30 years. I had created this version of someone that was never created to be like that, right? And just letting that person go. And, I've spent the last several years just trying to even figure out who I am, why I tick the way that I tick, and not for my own good or anything, but because I truly care about doing what God made me to do. I want to be able to do that. So it's pretty cool. You have to know the creation story is incredible. The creation story is legitimately intertwined into the being of our physical bodies, our spiritual bodies, our minds. It's implanted into us. Creation is everywhere. It's everything. It's such a massive thing that, we could do this the most justice it's ever been done, and it will still not touch the surface of what creation is. It's just such an expansive topic to try to tackle. And that's why it's really exciting, is because I think doing it the way that we've got a vision to do it, again, the way that God's given us sight to do this, it's just really fun. It's really fun. It's not trying to take this huge topic and sit and try to be the experts and make some sense out of it. But we can tell you from our perspective why we believe what we believe. And we can also back that with some really cool factual information from not just, what your dad was doing, what he spent so much of his life doing, but there have been some legitimate big names that are legit in this space to speak on this topic that are willing to help us with this project. It's really cool.
So to what you said, and I think this is really important, because everybody wants to, you say everybody wants to kind of have that insight or have that, they look for this reason. They want to know why, or who created them or what happened. But and this is Romans 1:20. I've always liked this, and I had to look up exactly what the verse was because I wanted to read the scripture correctly. But it says, "For ever since the world was created, people have seen the earth and sky. Through everything God made, they can clearly see his invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature. So they have no excuse for not knowing God."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's saying creation is God's signature. Creation is a picture of God. Creation is a gift to us. It's everything around us, the perfection of how things work, except for when we mess them up. But the perfection that of how things work, the way that bees pollinate flowers, to the process of photosynthesis, to the way the food chain works, to all these things that can work in a symbiotic relationship, and coexist, and everything, it feeds off each other. And without one thing, the other couldn't exist. It's a system within a system within a system. And all those systems have to work in unison. Otherwise, we're not here. There's so much. And the term intelligent design always gets pushed around. And some people use that, even without talking about God, just saying, well, it seems like things are so perfect in certain ways, like the human body and things like that, that it kind of does seem like there's some intelligence behind that design. And I mean, there is, obviously. This is way more complex than the biggest supercomputer. My brain is so much more complex than that. But yet we know, if we see a supercomputer sitting in front of us, that a man made it. How come when we look at our body that's made so much more amazingly, so much more perfect, able to do so many different things, and think so many different thoughts, and move so many different ways, and have the understanding of feelings, and how to process different situations, how is that an accident?
Well, it's not an accident, but I think it's hard to accept creation, because it's hard to legitimately sit with yourself and say, okay, I mean, I see that there could be other possibilities for how we came about, right? There are some theories out there. There are some things out there, you could get lost in that, and you could sit around and believe all of that. But I think it's hard to get to a point to where you absolutely deny that there's any higher power, right? Like, I think innately we all know that there's a higher power, regardless of what we say out of our mouths, the way that we act and project ourselves. I think that we all know, at least even on a subconscious level, I think that we know. And I think that it's hard to accept creation, because if you accept creation, then that means that you also have to accept the gift that God has for you at that point. I mean, obviously you don't have to, but it's going to be a thing that pulls at you for the rest of your life. It's that God-sized hole that's only meant to fill with him, and a relationship with him, and a walk with him, and his purpose for you, and to do literally what you were created to do. It's hard to accept that gift, because we can make sense out of almost anything. But I think one thing that's hard to make sense of is, especially if you're in a very dark place, and we've all been to dark places, and we'll all go back to some pretty sketchy places. It's hard to believe that somebody would care about you so divinely. It's hard to go through an existence in this world and to experience the heartbreak that's in the world, to experience abandonment, to experience just let down, and for you to do that to other people too, for you to be the initiator in those same negative experiences in other people's lives, and then just to accept the idea that someone loves you so much and created you, and still not just, I mean, just believes in you, roots you on, wants it there for you, created everything for you. And then once he knew that you couldn't even manage, came down and created ways for us to still go on and live, and to still have a chance, and not just created that way, but came down and literally recreated things on the cross, recreated everything that we had known, recreated a different covenant, so that we would absolutely be able to be accepted as a son or a daughter of the true living God. And that's hard to accept, knowing who we are, and knowing that we don't deserve the things. And it's not about us deserving it. We're not the hero here. God, our creator, is the hero. He is the hero. He's the one that had this divine intention. And even at the very beginning, he wanted us to be like him. He loved us that much. I mean, think about a God that's outside of space, time, and matter, loved us so much before we were even a thought to say, let us make human beings in our image to be like us. That's incredible. That's incredible. That's Genesis. That's creation. And that's hard to accept. And I think that a lot of times, we want to be rebellious and we want to say, well, there's no way, and there's no this, and there's no that. I think that's why we're haunted, when it gets quiet and when we're not distracted, that God-sized hole begins to bleed. And what are you going to do with that? There's only so many things you can try to fill a void with in this life. And, creation, anything created also ends at some point in time, right? Creation dissipates, and God doesn't dissipate. God was never created. God, we serve a God that's outside of being created. Like, do we understand how massive this is? And to think that with his Holy Spirit, not only do we get to serve that God, but we are like him. We are created with this purpose to go out and create like him, and to do these things to serve the purpose to glorify him. He even gave us the gift to be able to create, which is, what I know that was a long tangent, but like how cool that we get to actually create a piece of content, a piece of art, a piece of history for us and where we're at in our lives. We get to create that to give glory back to the creator for creation. It's a whole stack. It's really cool, man.
It is. And I think that's the other part. What you're saying that's really cool is our life experiences are very different.
Mm-hmm.
Very different. We come from very different backgrounds. We've definitely found God at different times. We both had things in our past. I was definitely not always a God-fearing person. Had my struggles, went through some things, and God called me back. And he called you at a different time. Actually, I met you before you had made that decision.
Mm-hmm.
Met you once when you were filming for somebody else. I met up with you, and it's just amazing to me that we'll be able to put those two different mindsets and the two different perspectives, and you'll have fingerprints all over this, and you'll find a way to look at it that I never would have seen, and vice versa, because I want this to talk to everybody. I want this to talk to people who are either not yet, Christians, that they don't quite have that foundation, but I also want it to speak to people that have, been Christians their whole life and be able to say, okay, now this makes sense. Now I understand where this comes from. They have that, like I said, that little piece of apologetic ammunition you can put in your tool belt, just so you always can back up what you believe. When someone asks you, when someone challenges you about your faith, do you just say, well, I believe, I guess, and they're just like, oh, whatever. You have something to explain, give them something to think about. So when they go home at night, they sit there and go, huh, that was a pretty good point. That makes sense. And then, you know what? God's working on their heart.
Mm-hmm.
But that's part of us. That's part of us witnessing to people. That's part of us reaching people, is being able to explain these things. And the crazy part is, yes, it is by faith alone we are saved, right?
Mm-hmm.
But God has left, just like it said in that Romans 1:20, right? No one has any excuse, because you've seen the sky, you've seen the earth, you've seen all his creation. No one has any excuse. But the fact of the matter is that oh man, I don't even know where I was going with that. It was actually a really good point, I think, but
You'll have another one.
I sidetrack myself all the time.
It's the only kind of points you have are good ones.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but this is going to be the whole point is that this is going to be from a couple different perspectives. It's going to have so much, it's going to be very original in the way that it comes across. It's going to be, and I think it's going to be earth shattering. I mean, I think it's going to blow a lot of people's minds. I just really want to make sure that the way that this is put together, that everyone can take something from this. This isn't just for one group of people. This is for everybody. This is for you to share with your friends. This is to share with your congregation. This is to share with your enemies. This is to share with everybody. I want this to be out everywhere to reach as many people as possible, because all this is proclaiming the greatness of who God is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. And so, without further ado, I think I know where you got tripped up on your last sentence. I think you tripped over the elephant in the room. So the elephant in the room with this project is that, unfortunately, it's not very cheap to make these things, right? Like, we've already, I say we, I think maybe I invested ahead of time, in all of the production rigs and the things that you need. And, we want to do, we're going to, it doesn't matter how much we were to receive, if anybody wants to contribute to this project. Obviously, we are asking for contribution because it could help, it could expedite processes, it could, make sure that we have a room when we travel out to go get some interviews, and, just different things that it takes to actually do a project. It's not to put money in our pockets at all. I'm sure we'll come out of this project in the negative if we're going to talk about finances, but I think spiritually we'll come out in the positive, and that's all good. We're doing this because it's something that calls to our spirit to go and do. So it's not work, but the reason that and I'm in a unique position where I don't think I've ever had a project that I asked for contribution on, to be honest with you. And with this one, it's just, we want to do a really good job. Obviously, the topic is big, and it's not about going out and getting all this unnecessary stuff. I mean, we have the nuts and bolts. It just happens that the nuts and bolts are very expensive nuts and bolts. And we could use a couple more. So, that's kind of, we wanted to get on here and just talk about the project, and to give, we've kind of been mysterious about it a little bit, and just to kind of expand some more on it, and yes, make a call to action. I think no matter what, Steve and I are very determined that we're going to do this thing, and we believe that God will provide all throughout the way. But we also believe that it would be silly to not consider that maybe He provided an audience of people that might want to help with the project. And we've got some pretty cool ideas for the people that do contribute at any level. We're talking about, if you gave a penny, to be able to jump in and look at, the behind the scenes stuff, and to get full interviews and, different. We don't even know what all we can deliver yet. We're at this ground level where we still need a couple key components to really get this going, that are going to take a financial backing. But yeah, we don't even know. We have an idea of what we could give people, but I don't even think we know at its scope how big that's going to look like. But I think that that's going to be really cool for a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. That's never a fun conversation, never something that's exciting to talk about. But
it doesn't bother me, I'll be honest with you.
Well, I don't know. The thing is, it's, I can tell you about the amount and things that we put in just to do the podcast. And our podcast, the dig, is not not financially something that we make anything off of. The dig is literally nuts and bolts. We just want to get the word out there. We look at everything, obviously everything from Jesus to aliens is what I tell everybody, because it literally spans the gamut. I want everybody to understand that this world, and try to put it back in the context, I guess, of how, the people of the day, the writers of the Bible, how they understood these things. What is happening in Genesis? What is happening through creation? What is happening? There's so many things. Context is so important. But I want to make sure that, that we do this project, and we, like you said, we're going to do it regardless. This is one way or another, we're doing this regardless. And you're right. We're going to come out of the negative, and it is what it is. But if anybody does feel compelled to help. Uh, you know, I, I challenge you to help, because this is something that you can be a part of. This is something that you can look at this at some point and be like, you know what, that was made because I helped, I contributed to that. And it's going to be something that you'll be proud to say that you were a part of. You'll be proud to say you were on the ground floor of that, because it's going to be something that will blow minds. It's going to be earth shattering, and it's going to be something that will be shared all over the world. It's, I can't say that enough. And I know, like Sean said, it's not easy, and it's not something fun to ask for assistance in that kind of way, but man, all it does is make that finish line a little closer. All it does is make the product a little better. All it does is give us the avenues to be able to do what God's calling us to do, and he will provide what we need. He will, but sometimes God provides from people.
Sure.
And I'm going to tell you, it's that same thing that my father-in-law Ben always said. There's there's a little girl in her room, and she gets scared of the dark and runs into her mom's room. And her mom says, "Go back and pray. Jesus is with you. Jesus is with you." So she go back, she prays, something happens. She gets scared again. She comes back to her mom. She's like, "Jesus is always with you. Just pray to him. Jesus is with you." She goes, "Yeah, Mom, but sometimes you need Jesus with some skin on him."
Mm-hmm.
And that's the honest to God truth. We're supposed to be there for each other through all this. Yep. Christians should be supporting Christians through everything. And this is, like I said, if you feel compelled, if you feel God pushing you that way, we appreciate it. If you don't, then don't do it. And that's fine. That's I really just want you to only do that if you feel compelled, and that God is pushing you in that direction, and you have the ability to.
Mm-hmm. And it goes without saying, or should go without saying, I mean, you can contribute in many ways outside of financially. Pray for the project. Pray that we have discernment in the project, that we have creativity. It's not often thought about unless you're in a creative field, but these things, I mean, you have a full-time job, right? I have like 7 full-time jobs. And an outrageous disc golf fascination. So, there's a lot of things going on out there in the world. And when you take on projects, especially one with this many moving parts of this magnitude, it is a big thing. It's a big undertaking. It's a lot of work. It's time away from our families. It's time away from our kids, our church. It's exhausting. This is an exhausting thing that we're getting into. And, you've already seen it on the creative side, when you're trying to pour into these things you feel led to do. I mean, it just sometimes it leaves you on empty. So, even more importantly than any financial contribution that anybody could give, if, you're hearing this, and just pray and like keep us in your thoughts, and keep us protected as we travel with things, and keep our minds protected against I'm sure the challenging times and obstacles that we're going to face doing this. And that's equally, if not more, appreciated than anything financially. But definitely, if you feel led to, I think Steve has set up a GoFundMe, and then we have other ways that you could obviously mail in checks or whatever, and Steve will make sure that information's posted. But yeah, I mean, it's just cool, man. You can be, like you said, on a ground level of something that we believe is going to be, around for a little bit and useful in a different type of way. And, let's just say what it actually ends up doing is it finds one person, and that one person gives their life to the Lord. Then guess what? Then you contributed to that, and that's worth it. That's the coolest thing we could be doing. That's the coolest thing that could happen. And we'll rejoice over 1 or 1 million or 100 million. It doesn't really matter. We just really want to do this thing on a level that we can look back on and say, hey, we poured out what God had made available to us. We poured it out. We offered that. You know, not only did we offer our talent and what we created with what he had given us, but we offered the submission to do this project despite the things that come up. And it's already been a challenge to do it. You know, we're already, you know, behind on the timeline we originally spoke about, and we want to do these things. You know, life is life, and it'll get you sometimes. So, you know, just keep us prayed over and, you know, looked out for. I think this project is going to, at the end, we're going to be able to sit back and relax a little bit, and hopefully we can watch it and feel really good about what we did and not be too harsh on ourselves, because that happens too, and create something that can be used for a long time, forever, that's evergreen, that can not only just it's not shutting the door on anything, it's opening this door that, you know, God put on your dad's heart. It's crazy, you know, where your dad left it, God put it right on your heart to pick it up from there and to do it differently than even your dad could have imagined it being done, which is so cool, man. It's I'm on a soapbox with things, but yeah, if you know you feel compelled in any way, you know, financially or just sending prayers and good vibes, that'll be cool. We'll appreciate that. And you know, if you have any thoughts on creation, I'd love to hear those too. You know, send those in and actually be an interactive part of this project.
You can reach out to me directly on the Dig Bible Podcast at gmail.com. And then I'll leave the links for everything else in the show notes. We appreciate anybody who's watching. We appreciate anybody who's listening. And just look forward to getting this project started and seeing who's coming with us.